Welcome to the Tiger Nexus Podcast, a place where you'll find interviews with content creators and geeks alike. Your host, Tiger, has delved upon the Nexus and found interesting content creators and geeks of all fandoms. This podcast is connected to the Zero Hero Network. And now we dive in with another episode!
Hello everybody and welcome to the Tiger Nexus podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Tiger, and today I'm talking about one of my favourite cartoons of all time, maybe my favourite one. I even cosplay as the guy, that's how much I love him. We're talking about Ben 10, and my returning guest is from episode 57. I interviewed him about his animation and about his YouTube channel, and if you guys want to check out Cosmic Rust Animations, please do so. I have Robyn returning. Hello bro, how are you?
Hello, I'm Robyn with a Y. I'm good, thanks. Very excited to be back. I had a good time last time. And we're talking about also one of my favourite shows, possibly my favourite show of all time. I've also cosplayed, I have a load of toys, I have a lot of it on DVD, and I've done many films and a lot of art pieces around it, so big fan.
Quick question before we dive in, is that how you normally introduce yourself? Hi, I'm Robyn with a Y.
Yeah, that's how I start. I tell you, it's funny actually. I do it in all the videos. That started in real life because when I tell people my name's Robyn, almost always they spell it wrong, and so then I'd have to have the awkward conversation of like, you're spelling my name wrong. So I just, whenever I started meeting people, I just say I'm Robyn with a Y.
Fair. Sorry, I thought I'd just ask because the way you introduce yourself, I was like, hang on, I need to ask this now, I'm curious.
Yes, no, genuinely, it started because I'd meet people and I'd say, hi, I'm Robyn with a Y, and then I was like, I need a YouTube intro. Okay, I'll just say I'm Robyn with a Y, and I show like a graphic where it says Robyn spelt with an I, and then I say with a Y, and it like slaps the Y on.
So today we're talking Ben 10, the original cartoon, but no threat. We are going to dive into
the classic series.
We are going to dive into the other series, Alien Force, Alien Omniverse, and the movies in separate episodes throughout the year. So we are going to dive into basically anything you can watch when it comes to Ben 10, minus the crappy excuse for a reboot because I refuse.
I haven't seen the reboot.
I've seen I've seen like the first two episodes and I wanted to throw up.
I think I was a bit old for it when it came out, so I didn't bother. I was too obsessed with the original series. But today we're just gonna go back to the original series, back where it all started. You could say when it started, when an alien device did what it did. It did. Stuck itself upon his wrist with secrets that it hid. Now he's got superpowers. He's no ordinary kid. He's Ben 10.
That should have been the theme song, bro.
Yeah, I know, right? I should be paid for this.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to Ben 10, I actually was there the very first time it aired in the UK. My parents saw it advertised and thought that would be something I'm very much into, and so I got to watch it day one of release in the UK, and I was hooked.
That's
just
crazy.
Like that. Yeah, I'm obviously, I'm close to 30 myself, so I'm a bit older.
Do you remember when it aired in the UK? Because obviously the original air date in the US, I believe, was December 27, 2005. But usually, at least back then, UK releases tended to be later. So do you have any recollection as to when you would actually watched it?
I want to say it was closer to the end of the year. Or at least
December 27th is pretty close to end of 2005.
Is it December 27? Is that when it hit?
That's 2005 December 27th. That was the Cartoon Network American release, but I don't know if that was the same here.
Okay, it could have been the following. It could have been the beginning of 2006. To be fair, I just remember that it took the trailers for it and it being promoted and stuff. It was a big deal. They were hoping that it would sell, and they did their as much promotion as they could, because Ben 10 obviously is made to sell toys, but the way that Ben 10 is done, It's a cartoon, yeah, but the Omnitrix itself can be a toy. You have Ben and his family; they can be toys, and all the aliens, all the bad guys. So they're really hoping that,
I actually remember all the toy ads. Although I am gonna just give for context, I was actually 2 years old when the classic series first premiered.
Oh, your little baby!
I was too, but I was a fan. I was an avid fan. Definitely by the time I was 4, and I think I got into it when I was 3. So I possibly started watching it 2006 or 2007, and I can tell you this now. Actually, possibly my earliest memory, or at least one of my earliest memories, is watching Ben 10. Specifically, the first time I remember watching Ben 10. Possibly this could have been when it premiered, actually, because this would have been probably like late 2007, which is when I think I would have started watching it, was the series 2 finale Secrets. That's the first episode I can remember watching of Ben 10.
Fair enough. I think when it came to Ben 10, there was also a lot of they did a good job in the way they presented themselves in the first couple episodes, because in the first episode, he doesn't turn into all 10 aliens. He never does it, really.
I think that did a really good job at kind of keeping the mystery of it. Who's he going to turn into? What's going to happen?
Yeah, so obviously the introduction does show off each of his 10 aliens in a very more of a cutesy sort of style as well. When it counts up to 10, and in the first episode, our first alien's Heat Blast, which is awesome. Love that reaction he has.
Classic kind of scene. I think it's a really interesting scene, actually, because I think it sets the tone for the whole series so well. Because you'd see other hero media, the hero first gets his powers, it's like this big grand moment, whereas with Ben it was
he freaks
out. He freaks out, and it's a very, I think the thing about that original Ben 10 series that I'd argue got lost very quickly over the sequel series is how grounded it really is. It's actually a very realistic series. Obviously it's stupid and it has aliens and whatever, but at the core of it, it's actually very real. All the characters are very real. Ben acts like an actual child. I'd say growing up, he was probably one of the most relatable characters on TV, because he'd say and do things that, as an adult would maybe be objectively wrong. He wants to be rich, he wants to be famous, and he wants to do this, and it's screw you, old man, I want to do my thing. And it's as a kid, you'd be like, yeah, go Ben, and then you grow up and it's oh, stupid kid.
See, it's not just Ben though, because they did a really good job with Grandpa Max and Gwen, because obviously it's a vacation trip throughout the States, and Ben and Gwen are cousins, but they act like siblings and they tease each other.
Honestly, Ben and Gwen are so relatable, because I have siblings.
Same.
And to be honest,
I get it. I understand Ben's frustration.
It's you see Ben and Gwen, and I don't know if people have ever criticized the show for their bickering or whatever, it being annoying. But to be honest with you, me and my brother, who 4-year age gap, way worse than they were. Jesus Christ.
There's a 7-year age gap between me and my older brother, because I'm a middle child on my mum's side. I'm a middle kid.
I'm the youngest of them. But it's I find all the characters to be so grounded, so believable, even though it's so fantastical. And even when you see, because obviously a big part of the original series is kind of the road trip aspect of traveling America, and all the places they go to in America are real places for the most part. Maybe they'll do weird little towns or whatever, but they go to a lot of real places, national monuments, and they'll talk about history and they'll talk about things. And I think all of these things really help ground the series. It helps you look at it and be that's the real world, but then all this crazy stuff happens. And I think as well, the show does a really good job at kind of easing you into it. It doesn't just obviously the opening scene is it throws a bunch of alien shit in your face, but it doesn't immediately be let's get in a spaceship and go to Mars. It's okay, we've got aliens and there's some alien stuff happening, but we're still at the shopping mall. We're still, at a baseball game. And then it's kind of as the show goes on, you slowly introduce more and more elements to slowly build out the world. Series 4, sure, Series 3, end of Series 3, I think, is the first time they go to space. and they're only in orbit, and it's like, but that was such a huge moment because it's like, holy shit, we're in space now. And then Series 4, you open with Secret of the Omnitrix, which is this huge intergalactic adventure, which is like on a whole other scale. And I don't think things like that would have anywhere as much impact if that's what you started the show with. Like, if you first watch Ben 10, the first thing you watch is Secret of the Omnitrix. It's great, but it lacks the build up to that. You don't understand how crazy it is that we've just gone to another planet.
See, I feel like, because you said it's very grounded, and I completely agree. Because they get the four characters, I feel like they completely did well when it comes to grounding. Is obviously Ben and Gwen. They bicker. Their kids are only 10. Like you said, Ben has a whole phase of like, hey, maybe I can make money off of this. He uses grey matter to to his advantage, and forearms to his advantage, and things like this. And he dicks around with his alien transformations when he can, and he plays around with them, and he learns through that, which is what kids do. Then you got Grandpa Max, who, is, he's in his retirement years. He's, he's an old man and all that stuff. But that works for who Grandpa Max is, because, he knows about aliens. He's a plumber. He's been part of a galactic police force.
The Grandpa Max twist throughout Series 1, I think, is so well done. Because they hint at it so subtly in that first episode. Like, I bet no kids really picked up on the whole, he's not a monster, he's an alien line.
Yeah.
And then, but then, you get to that Series 1 finale, and it's like, oh shit, he knew the whole time. And it's one of those things that, again, at the start of that show, he's just a normal old guy. But then by the end of the show, it's like, he's an intergalactic badass.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know how some people may disagree with this next statement, but like, when you're a kid, your parents, and more so your grandparents, they don't really explain things to you, and like, for some reason you need to be a bit older for this, you need to be a bit more experienced for that and stuff. And that's pretty much what Grandpa Max does for the first season. He's like, he does try to shout at Ben, even though Ben can turn to aliens and things. And then the other character who's very grounded and makes complete sense is Kevin, because you have a kid who's completely rejected, so when he gets the ability to do something about it, he does. And that is very human.
I completely agree. Tell you the truth, I actually think Kevin as a character has aged so much better than most people would probably think. If anything, I think he's more of a relatable character to put out there. And, like, I mean, you just look at all these things. I mean, not to get too heavy or anything, but there are a lot of stories that kind of correlate to the kind of things Kevin goes into, and I think more than ever nowadays, people are becoming aware of how these conditions growing up, being neglected, feeling like a reject, the way people treat you, and then this resulting in people maybe doing bad things. Like, Kevin is such a real character in a very brutally honest way. And as well, I think he was a really good message for kids, because I'd watch it and I'd be like, Kevin, I don't want to be like that guy. He's a fucking asshole. Yeah. But then you grow up and you understand it's like, well, he's not inherently evil, but he's sort of almost been pulled. He's sort of almost been drawn to this direction, and I think it's so much more impactful. I do question though the decision to turn him, because I do think they maybe played a little black and white later in the show. I think at the start he's a very grounded character, but then when you get stuff like the Ben 10,000 episodes and he's a maniacal villain, like, he's less grounded there, but obviously you can't. That's probably an unfair comparison, because I am talking about the literal future episodes that take place in fucking Star Wars. But I think as a character, he started off really grounded, and then I think they kind of forgot about him, I feel like, later in that show, until you get to like the sequel series where they bring him back and do a lot more with him. But like,
see,
I feel like they lost him a little bit with Kevin. Like, he kind of just became another run-of-the-mill villain for me after like the first 2 seasons.
I agree with the fact that he became a run-of-the-mill villain, but I also think it's a case of They wanted to drill in Vilgax. They wanted him to be like the arch enemy, like the Green Goblin,
the big
Spider-Man.
cheese.
Yeah. And then I feel like a lot of kids, like me personally, I love Dr. Animo. I think Dr. Animo's a
He's
fucking
so good. His
insane
voice,
character.
amazing.
And I think they could do more entertaining things with the likes of Dr. Animo then, because Kevin, when he's mutated and he becomes, his proper, his mutated form, what we know as Kevin for the rest of the show, that's it. Ben gets more aliens. The episode where Ben and Kevin go up to that galactic.
To be honest,
space
I
arena
was
thing.
actually just going to say, I think that, for me, was probably the last great Kevin episode of that series, because I think it's a really good Kevin episode, because that one they get to take a moment to kind of question what's going on here, dude. Like, they just get to talk to each other and they kind of almost find resolution with each other, and then obviously he decides that he just wants to go on being a villain, and I do really like that episode.
That
for
episode.
That reason.
That episode I absolutely love, because it was the one time Ben got to get the upper hand in the most dominant way, because
Kevin
doesn't have Cannonbolt. Kevin doesn't have Cannonbolt, so Ben was able to use Cannonbolt to his advantage, and the way they animated Cannonbolt bouncing around and smacking into him, you can just see Kevin's absolute distraught horror in his face. He's like, "What the fuck's this?"
I will say as well, just because we're talking about Kevin, his mutated design, oh my god, it's so cool. Honestly, when I was a kid, I wanted that toy so much. He was so badass.
I have one gripe with it.
Oh yeah?
Upgrade. I don't like the fact that Upgrade is just his back, basically.
I really like how it works into the design. I don't think they ever really make use of his powers.
No, he doesn't. Nah.
But I do like how it's implemented into the design. Again, though, this is a case of, I don't even know if I can look at it objectively, because to me, growing up, it was like the coolest thing ever. But
okay, so let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
What's your out of the original 10 aliens, what's your go-to favorite alien of the original 10?
Do you know what? I know what it is, and I'm kind of apprehensive to say it because I think it's a bit of a weird. I don't think it's a popular choice. I think it's a weird choice. But I've always said, because my favorite alien isn't from the original lineup, but my second favorite alien is, and that's Wildmutt.
Honestly, low-key fire pick.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I've just always loved Wildmutt. To me, Wildmutt was one of those hype aliens. He was just a big mean dog, and he's so weird. And I think even as the show continued, he's still one of the strangest ones. Ben is non-verbal with him. He has no eyes. It's a completely different way of seeing, and to me, he also feels like a very kind of realistic alien. We might talk about this more later, but one of my favorite things about the classic series, again, because I've spoken a lot about how grounded it is, that also does apply to the aliens. They have some outlandish ideas with the aliens. This guy's on fire, this guy's made of diamonds, but they still treat it more pretty rigid, pretty serious science fiction stuff. They try and think of these aliens these aren't just one-off superheroes. This is an alien creature that has an ecosystem and a planet. And to me, Wildmutt is one of those kind of quintessential, if there was just a species of creatures, Wildmutt. I mean, you see a bunch of Vulpamances throughout the series. I feel like they're one of the ones you probably see the most of that aren't Ben, and I find him really interesting because of that, because he feels so real. He's just kind of like a big dog.
See,
and he's so real for that.
You mentioned the fact we see other Wolfmancers. The Phil episode is when we see, because Phil brings out the Wolfmancers from the Null Void.
Because then he gets paid to put them back in. It's a great one.
That episode was when I was a kid. That episode really stuck with me for a while, because it showed that it's Ben turns into these aliens, but it also kind of, without showing it explored the universe that is Ben 10, because those other aliens that Ben can turn into, and they didn't look the same either. Ben 10's Voldemort form is, a bit chunky, he's a bit muscly, but these other Vulpamancers were more hunchback, and they had these weird
I feel like, to
their
me,
fur, and their teeth was different and stuff.
I always felt the statement with that is actually to do with the age, because when you see Ben 10,000's Vulpamancers, it actually looks a lot more like those other ones. And I don't know if it's ever mentioned in the series, but there is like the whole thing of Ben's aliens
it is his age,
are age proportionally, and I feel like that Wildmutt scene, for me at least, that's kind of where I've always derived that idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Next to him, it's like, well, he looks like a child.
For me, when you see Ben as the Vulpamancer, and then you see these at the same scene,
it's crazy.
That stuck with me. I was like, oh shit, this is cool, But seeing the way they did certain storylines, because going back to the grounded idea, Phil, very relatable character. He basically got put out of a job. Realistically, the plumbers weren't a thing. When classic series starts, plumbers aren't really around at this point. They kind of just disbanded. Some of them may be around, but they're not like a proper. In Omniverse, we have a full galactic rebellion again, but in original, Grandpa Max is retired and stuff like this.
Well, they're all kind of retired. That's kind of like the idea, is after Vilgax, they basically disbanded.
Yeah, so Phil is not only doing it for the money, but in my eyes, it's a case of he's still trying to live out his life, him capturing aliens and getting paid for it. Like, that's what he wants to do with his life. That's what he trained to be, and he doesn't know what to do after that. Grandpa Max retired, he had kids, he's got grandkids, he's taking his grandkids on a vacation, he's got future plans for life after being a plumber. Phil was stuck. He didn't know what, he was like the opposite of Grandpa Max, and that's how I always saw Phil, was like, what would happen if Max...
Phil is very much the dark reflection of Grandpa Max, in the way that Kevin's the dark reflection of Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really liked the Phil episode. That's, I think, one of my favorites, because of that idea.
I do want to interject though, because we've got on a whole spiral chat here, and this started while you asking me a question. I feel it's only right for me to ask you the same question back. Who's your go-to from the original 10?
Mine is one of the most picked aliens of all time.
Can I guess? Because I've got an idea.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess. You strike me as a Diamond Head guy.
You have hit the nail on the head.
I knew
Diamond Head. Right, no, see, okay, I will explain why, right? Because I have a very specific reason why Diamond Head's my favourite. Because when it comes to Ben's aliens, they are very aimed at, they have one... Out of the original 10 now, each one has, a main gimmick. Forearms is really strong. Heat blast controls fire, etc., etc. When it comes to showing off Ben's evolution in how well he knows his aliens, his training, and his ability to adapt, Diamond Head is where it stands, because he goes from shooting a couple of diamonds in the first episode to full-blown making ramps that he can slide across.
The ramp scene,
the
is
blades
incredible.
And stuff. Diamond Head's a really good representation. Just in classic alone is a really good representation of how good Ben has gotten throughout the series, how much he actually practices.
That's a really interesting point. And I think, again, not to talk too much about the sequels, but I also think they actually continue that with Diamond Head, because then when Diamond Head eventually does return, he then just solos Vilgax, which I think it's like what you're saying, like it shows how skillful he becomes with these characters, and it really shows the growth in his character. And let's be real, nobody's gonna shit talk Diamond Head. I think he's universally like one of the most beloved for a reason. And I he's so cool. He's really interesting, unique. He's got great powers, great design. And I'll say this as well, because obviously we were talking about the Phil episode. I think Tetrax has to be a point in that, because let's be honest, it's always a very special, at least in the classic, it was a very special moment whenever you meet one of Ben's aliens that isn't him.
Yep, no, Tetrax
was
sick.
the first, and he's a beloved character, and I feel like Tetrax just kind of solidified how cool Diamond Head was by being really cool himself.
Yep.
He shows off with his big fucking hood, and he's got the deep voice and he's super
Yeah,
mysterious.
yeah. Okay, so my next question to you then would be, what's your favorite extra alien that joined?
Oh
And
yeah. Additional from
yeah,
the 10.
additional, yeah.
Ooh, I'm gonna think about this for a second because I mean, so obviously you got Cannonbolt,
Yep.
Wildvine.
Which, can I just state, whilst you're thinking, I just want to make
Yeah.
this note here. The idea alone that Ben could get new aliens was absolutely phenomenal. But
Insane.
they did such a good job with the first introduction. The fact that Cannonball is the need to a means to end a bad guy and a weird ass threat as well. It's nothing normal. It's like, he's got to fight these like dudes on weird discs that float, but it's the big tick thing that he's actually got to destroy. It's not something Ben's really faced before. So not only is a new alien, new weird threat, and it's the whole goddamn episode. What a way to introduce a new alien. It was drop dead amazing. As a kid, I lost my mind. I was sat there like, okay, this is a game changer.
I've just gone up a list because I don't want to make sure I forget anybody from it. It's difficult, with the post transformations because there's so many fun ones in my opinion. Like just to rattle off a couple, like Upchuck immediately is so good. One that I've always weirdly liked, and I kind of want to say for this question, is Wildvine. Like, I couldn't even tell you like why really. I just always thought he was really dope. Same with like Eye Guy. I think I've even said, because I did a video about Eye Guy recently. I don't even know what the fuck his powers are, but I've just always thought he was really cool.
Okay,
but
so
you know what? I want to say one simply because of his introduction. Because in my opinion, his introduction is one of those all-time moments of Ben 10. I wouldn't say he's like a personal favorite alien of mine, but his introductory scene is enough for me to say him for this answer, and that's Way Big. Because let's be real,
cool. Yeah,
Way Big was like the most hype moment ever. Because it's like, try this one on for size, and it's like, dude picks up Vilgax and just tosses him into space like nothing.
That's fair. So
I don't love Way Big because I don't think they used him very well after that scene, but that first scene is like incredible.
Yeah, I agree. So to explain Eye Guy, basically, any one of his eyes, or however many he's using at the time, he can basically shoot energy that has different elemental properties. We've seen him electrocute people, we've seen him freeze people, and he's also caused explosions. But it's the combination, however many eyes are formed into a singular one is how powerful the beam will be.
Honest to God, I don't even remember any of that. Like, I remember Eye Guy being in the Ben 10 versus the -10, and I believe he's in one of the openings for Secret of the Omnitrix, but I'm not even sure if I've seen it all the way through. But like, I don't. Eye Guy's one of those ones where it's like he didn't even get like a proper introduction. He just kind of showed up.
Yeah, it's one of the lazier.
I think he's such a great design, and I've always been very
really out there as well.
I've always been very disappointed that he just kind of never had like a spotlight moment. I mean, I'd also say that, to be honest, I do have some gripes, because one of my other favourite ones that was introduced was Ben Wolf, and I love the Ben Wolf episode where you think he's turned into a werewolf.
So, that's actually one of my, if I had to like pick like 10 or 20 episodes of the classic, he's called Blitzwolf officially, but Ben Wolf, we'll just call him for...
No, Ben Wolf. I hate the name.
So, Blitzwolf was actually a reference to someone.
No, I know that. I don't. It's a really dumb reference. I hate the Blitzwolf name. It's so dumb.
So that whole episode, to me, was done really well because we have Ben, like, kind of turning a different shade of color. He's growing more fur and claws. He starts acting like a dog, like wolf-esque. He's itching himself and stuff. And then he's also fighting an alien that he's slowly turning into, which is great because normally the transformations are the same scenes every time, or it's a flash of green and he gets the wrong alien. It's one of the two. So having Ben dragging on the transformation. You know, it's very like eventually he does turn into like the full alien. And like I love the scene where his clothes become that little like, you know, that torso bit of the symbol appears. That is really well animated. That like
It's
the
so
official
good.
final transformation piece is so
Well,
sick.
I think that's quite a big moment because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the first time you ever see him capture DNA of an alien.
Yeah, so the I don't actually know what the wolf's actually called if he has a name. He
I don't
scratches
know.
he scratches
Yeah, he
the army
scratches
tricks.
it, and it takes the
Triggers
DNA,
it. Yeah,
and that
it triggers
happens
it.
a couple more times after them. But I believe that's the first time he ever met an alien, and then like captured its DNA and turned into it. Obviously, that would be something that would happen regularly throughout the rest of the show, but that was kind of a big moment because I feel like up until that point there was never like an idea of you could get more. Obviously, we started introducing new transformations, but there was never this question of could I meet an alien and turn into him?
Yeah.
Whereas that then was like, oh shit, you could. And
So,
it did it in such an interesting way and then became this really fun reveal, like you say, where it turns to the Omnitrix. It's like, oh, I just turned into this guy. I'm not a werewolf.
yeah. My favorite extra alien is Upchuck. I have a
I
love for
really love
Upchuck.
Upchuck. He's so good.
I bringing up the sequels real quick. Even like love his like redesigned like the weird like froggish sort of like color palette they picked for him. One of my favorite scenes of all time is when it's a really shit episode in the original series. It's one of the crap episodes where they have to chase after those three goons who nicked the RV.
Oh yeah, in the desert. And he tries to eat the pizza.
Yeah, and he's like, "What? I can't eat real food." I was like, "Oh my god, that is so funny."
Like, that's so
Dude,
good.
I am a 27-year-old man, right? I have a
No,
kid
it's
who's
genius.
7. That scene still makes me cackle to this
Honest
day.
to God, that scene lives in my brain rent free. So. Tell you, one of my favorite Upchuck scenes is actually his introduction because it's Xylene who activates him, and then he's like, "What do I do? Eat it." Well, you don't have to be rude. No, I mean eat it.
Yeah,
To me, like, the thing that I'll tell you this now. The joke that got me, honest to God, this joke gets me every time, and I remember seeing it for the first time. It fucking killed me. And it's that same episode with Eileen. He defeats the villain, turns back into Ben, and they just coughs up a bolt.
Yeah. I also love the fact that he's small and chubby, but he's also one of the most dangerous aliens at the point, like
No,
at
he
that
is.
time Ben gets. Like he swallows literally the power of a dwarf star and just vomits a vortex which blows up the fucking, Mount Rushmore heads. Like what?
Do you know what I love so much about Classic? And this goes back to my whole they feel real angle. And Upchuck is one of the perfect examples of this. Is that original lineup? They're not very superhero. Like, obviously, you got Forearms and Diamond Head. They're both kind of like big buff dudes. Like, even Heat Blast. Like those three accelerate. There's maybe like five, six of them that are very superhero coded. But then the other guys, they are just like, they're just very real dudes. Like Upchuck, he's a short little plump guy, or Wildvine. Okay, Wildvine's a little more superhero. But then you got like Ripjaws. He's just a fish dude, or Stinkfly, big bug. I mean, Grey Matter, I think, is one of the best examples where he is literally just a classic little, like, 50s grey alien, but he's, like, 10 inches tall.
Yeah. I actually have a really big hot take when it comes to one of Ben's extra aliens.
Okay. Which one? I'm curious.
I absolutely love Ditto.
No, I was literally just about to bring up Ditto being like, oh, if we're talking about extra aliens, I love the Ditto episode, and he's such... Because Ditto is a really fun one.
I've seen don't get me wrong, Echo's in my top 10, like, maybe my top 3 aliens of all time. I love Echo to bits. He is so fucking good. But at the time of Classic, we literally had this conversation before recording, the power to duplicate, right? And
yes.
A lot of people diss the Ditto thing because, if one stubs his toe, which happens in his introduction episode, all of them feel it. But that gives me like Naruto vibes, and I think it's a really cool design. I think it's a bit goofy looking. I like his little derpy like tilt of the head,
and
thing. And again, it plays on Ben's immaturity, which I think is one of the best ways to do it. Is where
you know what,
he's literally playing a beach game by himself, and he's literally doing it by himself. It's something a kid would do. If a 10-year-old had the ability to duplicate themselves, they would literally just play football, or they'd play frisbee, or they do something with their duplicates. That's literally what a 10-year-old would do, and that's what Ben does, and it's great.
I love it. Honestly, though, I think the whole criticism with Ditto and his whole the pain thing, as you brought up, I think is really dumb as a criticism, because to me that's what makes him a fun. Like, I agree. Love Echo Echo, but if you were to talk about a duplication alien, obviously if you're going for tactical, if you're going for I need to beat this guy, you pick Echo Echo. But if you're talking about, to me, which one's more interesting to do as a character, Ditto all the way, because something like that, it's like, oh, why would you have such a stupid weakness? Why the fuck aren't you bulletproof? Why aren't you fireproof?
Yeah.
A stupid weakness is what grounds that character. To me, it's giving all the aliens weaknesses. Like Wildmot, like he's sensitive to smells, or if Ben gets sick and then he's blind because he's got snot in his gills or whatever. Or Ripjaws is probably the perfect example. He can't breathe on land. Why would you have such a stupid weakness? Can you breathe in water? It makes these characters feel, again, more real and more interesting. And I think a good kind of argument for why obvious weaknesses is a good storytelling device is actually the argument of web shooters versus organic webs. Because as Stan Lee would often say, why would you pick web shooters over organic webs? Well, web shooters can run out and then you have a problem. And that creates a more interesting story. Why would you pick Ditto? Well, you wouldn't, but if you're Ditto and you're doing this, well, crap, now you can all die if one of you gets captured.
I also think
that's interesting.
I also think it worked really well on showcasing how good Ben is at a 10-year-old, because Ben is known to be strategically battle IQ smart, and it like Gwen tells him in Secrets of the Omnitrix, there are times where he is a hero without going hero, because it's just naturally in him. Okay, it didn't start until he got the Omnitrix, but he is good at saving people, and when the Omnitrix gives him the wrong alien, or he does turn into the right alien, but it's a scenario where this alien's now kind of like mute because of the scenario, Ben still manages to do something. And let's say he accidentally becomes Ditto when he wants to become Forearms. One Ditto gets punched in the face, they all feel it, but Ben is still gonna find a way to beat the bad guy or save the villain as Ditto.
He's a very, I think the most interesting thing about Ben as a character is his adaptability. Really, if Ben had a superpower, it's his adaptability, because no matter what he's thrown at or what he's dealt with, because like I say, the Omnitrix is always broken, which as a kid that would be something that maybe infuriated me, because I'm like, oh, why can't you just turn into Forearms? But then seeing how he then takes somebody like Upchuck and then defeats the main villain of the series, and it's like, that's really smart and really creative, and really it makes him so much more of a thought-provoking character. And it's like, again, it's like he can just adapt to a situation, which is really cool, and it makes him so... Obviously, it doesn't always work, and that, again, helps keep the character real. It's like, oh shit, I'm in the desert fighting bad guys, I'm a fish dude, I'm screwed. But, that's fun, because, okay, if he just turned into Cannonbolt and destroyed them, well, now the episode's over at 5 minutes. I never get these arguments of, why don't you just do this? Well, then the episode's over. Shut up.
So there's a couple of episodes and a couple of story points I want to throw your way and get your opinions on. So the first one is the samurai, no, not samurai, sumo slammer episode,
sumo slammers,
where they get sucked into the game. I'm curious about your thoughts on that, because it's low-key one of my favorite episodes.
Completely agree. In fact, I have so many memories that revolve around that episode. Like, my brother used to have this Ben 10 card game, and he had all the sumo slammer cards. The thing that I actually remember the most, and this is gonna age me a little bit, is I remember I used to play loads of Ben 10 flash games, and one of them was based on the sumo slammers episode.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was like the best Flash game because it would be like you could run. It was like a side scroller. It's like you could actually turn into the aliens like it does in the episodes, and I love that episode as well because it does something that very rarely happens in the show, and that's give the aliens a completely new design.
That's one of the reasons why I like
it happens, like the Gwen 10 episode, which is also one I love, where they gave all the aliens new designs, and then they did it in Sumo Summers. But it was such an interesting idea, and also involved an alien that I think is very underrated in his use in the show, and that's Upgrade. Because obviously it's Upgrade that sort of creates that scenario, and I'm like, well, that's a really interesting way to use that character who has a very unique kind of gimmick for Ben 10. Like, you can't really look at another character in another show and be like, that's like Upgrade. And then you're doing something really fun and out there in Ben 10 as well. And it's something I'm glad the show didn't do like more of it, because I think it could have been very easy to oversaturate that, another episode where they're sucked into a game. But it's the fact that they did it the once and they did it so well that made it so memorable.
For me as well, the way, because obviously, Ben and Gwen get like these like kits, that's very like Sumo Slammer samurai-esque looking like outfits. The Omnitrix design where like the actual
where it's like
arm and
it's
stuff.
Like
it's so good. I love that. I
love it.
The fact they even adapted the Omnitrix, because they didn't have to. They did not have to do that at all. But the fact that these artists and these animators and these designers went, let's change Omnitrix just as once. Fucking awesome.
I do want to actually add this because we haven't talked about this, but the design, I will say, because we talked about the Sumo Slam one, I'm actually a huge fan of the Omnitrix being like a gauntlet instead of a watch. Like, I love the Ultimatrix for that reason. I love Ben 10,000's Omnitrix is like my favorite one because it's a gauntlet, and so is the Sumo Slam one. But to talk about the original Omnitrix design, in my opinion, it is one of the greatest designed props in all of media because it's so perfect. The color scheme is perfect, the layout's perfect, and just the way it works, you press the button, the dial pops up, and then you turn the dial, it picks the aliens. Like, the way the graphics and the interface works, I think every attempt past then, even though I love the Alien Force one, then the whole, the holograms was a really cool kind of upgrade. In my opinion, they never beat that original design because it was so perfect the first time. What do you do with it to make it better? You can't. It's perfect. And then the only things, in my opinion, that really did elevate it was the Ben 10,000 designs, where it became more of like the gauntlet. But I wouldn't be like, give the original one the gauntlet, because I think I love the gauntlet more because of how it represents his evolution as a character. Like, it grows with him.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you were to tell me give somebody an Omnitrix, it's that original design. Like, I love some of the other designs, some more than others, but like that original Omnitrix, it's like every single shape, every single line, every color placement could not be more perfect. It's ridiculous how insanely good they got it the first time.
So my little gripe with one of the episodes is actually about the Omnitrix design, funny enough. So in future series, they actually did do this with different variations of the Omnitrix, but when it comes to the Ken 10 episode, where like it's a case of, what happened if Ben had a kid type thing, Kenny gets the Omnitrix, but it's exactly the fucking same. And don't get me wrong, I love the design. I feel like I'm with you. The Omnitrix is beautiful, but I just wish that Kenny had his own, even if it was just maybe a slight color change.
I completely agree. To be honest,
tiny difference. I just want something different because yes, okay, the Omnitrix, it is now different for Ben 10,000. It's bulkier, it matches Ben's body structure now and all this stuff. Why not have Kenny have a unique one too? Because he got to make his own playlist. He even debates his dad.
I question though. I feel like I completely agree with you from a modern standpoint, but I feel like if you put yourself back to when that episode was in production, I think that the idea of changing the Omnitrix design was definitely more of a foreign concept, because let's be honest.
Yeah, sure.
Other than Ben 10,000's evolution of it, which is pretty much, in my, as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty much agreed it's the same thing, just
bulkier,
gotten bigger. Whereas, like, in terms of redesigning the Omnitrix, the first time that really happened was Alien Force. So maybe just in the classic series, the idea of it changing design just like wasn't a thing. Like maybe they were just like, oh no, if you made another Omnitrix, it would look the exact same. You know, maybe that was the thought process. But like, I agree. I'd have liked a new design, especially because it could be like, well, this is the newer model. But like, I think if I was to put myself in their shoes, that was probably the thought process. It's just you have the Omnitrix and that's it. It doesn't need a new design. But then obviously they would redesign it with the other shows, and you know, love or hate it, it has become, I think, a bit of a staple to do like unique Omnitrix designs. I mean, how many did the reboot have? Like 3 or 4.
Oh,
you know, every series kind of has like its own take of the Omnitrix, but again, it's one of those. It's so hard to reinvent. Like it's, you know, you look at like iconic things in media, like you know the Batmobile or the Ghostbusters car or the Iron Man suit, and it's like, or even Spider-Man. You know, it's like over the years people have reinvented it so many times, but there's usually like the one iteration where you can look at it and be like, that's kind of where it peaked. And I don't know, the Omnitrix is one where it's like, no matter how many times you redesign it, I just don't think they ever did one that really competes with the original. Whereas like Spider-Man, you could be like, well, I love the Amazing Spider-Man costume, I love the Tobey Maguire costume, I love Spectacular Spider-Man. You know, I feel like there's never like one version where you're like, that's the best one. You know, you couldn't say this is the all-time best Spider-Man suit definitively. You couldn't say this is the all-time best Batmobile definitively. Whereas the Omnitrix, I feel like you can. You know, and whether that's you know, that could, you know, that's an opinion. It's an opinion, but it's just, for me, you never beat it.
So another episode I want to throw at you is the episode where Ben fiddles with his Omnitrix, pops the disc off, Animo steals it, and now all of Ben's aliens are fused, and we get 3 fusions.
Yes, Dr. Animo and the Mutant Ray, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yep.
That episode, I always found so fun. Obviously, it's an Animo, and anything with an Animo is great. And the idea of fusions. Now, when I was a young boy, and I was a huge Ben 10 fan, going on the internet, playing Flash games, one thing that I used to always see so much about, you know, whether it be Google images or just YouTube videos that bloody shitty slideshows of this, was fusions. I remember fusions being like such a huge thing on the internet.
Yep.
And at the time, I don't even think I'd seen that episode. So like, I didn't know like it was a thing from the show. I always thought it was like a fan thing. I think I don't remember when I first saw that episode, because I remember bits of it. So I think it was a case of I was there when it was on TV, but like I maybe didn't see the whole thing. Like maybe I watched the first half of it and got distracted with something and didn't see it, because I never remembered the fusions in the show. So then, you know, going back to it a little bit older and seeing where the fusions came from, it's such a fun idea, and it's one of those, again, like the Sumo Slammer thing, where it's, you're giving us something new, but in moderation. It's like you just do it in the one episode. It's not like this happens. Obviously, they would bring back the idea much later, but it's such a fun idea, and I love so many of the designs from it. And obviously, it's just a great episode as well, because I think the whole issue of it stems from Ben just fucking around with the Omnitrix and he breaks it. And I think that, again, it's so relatable, because how many times did you get a toy and break it because you were messing with it?
So I was about to say that one, it's a perfect example of Ben and still being just a 10-year-old, but I also think it is one of the most clever plans Dr. Animo ever came up with.
That was genius. And honest to God, I'm going to say this now. What he does to Max in that episode is genuinely horrifying. It's so disturbing.
Low key, I actually got freaked out by Max's little slug form.
I got freaked out by it as an adult.
Fair.
What the fuck? That thing's horrifying.
What's your favourite fusion out of the 3 that we got?
Ooh, okay. Remind me. I remember Diamond Head Grey Matter.
Diamond Head Grey Matter, Forearm Stink Fly, Heat Blast Ripjaws.
Okay, Heat Blast Ripjaws just in concept. I need to see this, actually, because I don't remember what I only remember what the Ben 10 what the
So many
diamond head grey
people
matter looks like.
so many people shit on the Heat Blast Ripjaws one, but I'm gonna go back to my earlier point about the ditto point I made. The whole issue with Heat Blast Ripjaws is Ripjaws needs water. He can stay on land for a couple of seconds, but that's about it. Heat Blast dries him out, and he
Right,
literally
yes, I'm seeing the picture. Yeah, so like as you were saying, like the whole idea of it being a built-in weakness, I love it because it makes the scene so difficult.
Yeah, so the fact that he still wins,
It's
again,
insane.
it's
I
Ben's
love it.
ability to adapt and his ability to look at a scenario and go, okay, this is the one single tool I have. How do I conquer this task? And Ben's fantastic at that, and that is a really good example of it. He's now got a fusion of an alien that needs water, but fire powers, they do not mix.
They don't mix, and it's so good.
He's literally a charcoaled fish by the end of it if he doesn't actually go in water. What the fuck's he meant to do? And he still manages to kick some ass.
It's literally it's a built-in weakness. I love it. So I just looked up the fusion designs to kind of recap my brain. In concept, Ripjaw's Heat Blast is my favorite in concept, but in design, I actually think it's the worst one because it doesn't blend the designs very well. It's literally Ripjaws with Heat Blast arms. I think Forearms Stinkfly is a little better, but again, it's kind of mostly just forearms with some Stinkfly bits. In my opinion, the best fusion design is Grey Matter Diamond Head.
Yeah, same. I agree.
Because it fuses those designs in such a perfect way where it's so clear. It's like it feels like a perfect 50-50 of both designs.
Yeah, it's my favorite because he's not as small as Grey Matter, but he's not as big as Diamond Head. You know, he's
got the eyes, he's got the head
he's
shape,
got the hands and stuff. Yeah, he's like proportioned very well, but he's still got diamond powers. Yeah, to me, it's the best.
He's a great design, and again, obviously, just growing up, having seen like just the culture around the idea of the fusions alone, I think is insane. And even now, to my knowledge, it's still a very popular aspect of the fandom, and it's so cool to see like how people interpret this. How people will create fusions of like literally every alien, and then it's seeing all the combinations of like forearms cannon bolt or a accelerate wildvine or some shit like that, and it's like it's a really cool idea. And I think as well, I think I'm a little attached to it because I don't know if you remember these. They used to do these toys that were like they were kind of like Lego-ish in that they were like little minifigures and they all got like the same design. Like the gimmick with them is that you can take them apart and combine them in different ways. I can't remember what they were called, but I used to have them.
Yep, no, exactly.
I used to have some. I had I think it was Upgrade and Stinkfly from Classic, and then it was Big Chill and Goop from Alien Force, but they were all compatible with each other. And when I don't know, I used to have like a weird obsession with those little figurines. And I know it's not quite the same as a fusion, but they're kind of fusion-esque in that it's about kind of combining aliens together. But honestly, I think that's something that Classic does really well, because all the episodes you've thrown at me have kind of had like a similar theme of we're going to do something very unique and very different with this one episode.
Well,
Classic does that like 10 times, and it's insane how often they do that.
So my next episode also has a very one-time thing, but it sticks around for the rest of Ben 10 going throughout every series. The next episode I want to throw at you is the episode where Ghost Freak leaves the
Oh my god, Ghost Freak. Oh, I can't believe it's taken us this long to talk about Ghost Freak, honestly.
It's one of my favorite arcs.
What a story arc. I still remember... Like, I remember so vividly seeing it for the first time and being like, this is the most mad shit ever. Taiju, the scene that weirdly stuck with me, and I cannot explain to you why. I can remember the first time watching it, I remember it stuck with me, and it's literally the opening to that episode, the dream sequence where he's Wildmutt and he's trying to get a kid out of a tree, and then the kid turns into Ghost Freak, and then Wildmutt talks. Yeah, because it's a dream, and that scene just always stuck with me because it's like, what? It's like the most weird thing I'd ever like. I couldn't imagine making that scene any weirder. And then it stuck with me, and then it became this whole like, oh, Ghost Freak's thing. To tell you the truth, like, I don't really remember. No, sorry, I do tell a lie. Because the only thing I remembered about Ghost Freak prior to those episodes, because I think he had a few appearances, but I'm pretty sure I actually missed all of his appearances except for the fuck, what's his name, Zombozo
Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
That's the only
it's
idea I've
one.
had of Ghost Freak.
It's one of my favorite usages of Ghost Freak. That episode of Zombo's episode.
Well, that's the thing, because he's in. Is it Wanted where you first meet Tetrax? And
Yeah, I think so.
the first time I watched the series through, I never saw that episode, and I think because there were a few episodes that I missed, because obviously you're a kid watching TV, sometimes you miss it. So I didn't see that one, and I think genuinely, I think I did miss like every other appearance of Ghost Freak except for the Zombozo one. So my only idea of what Ghost Freak was like the scariest shit in the world. So then you get to this episode and it's like, wait, he's not a good guy? Oh god, we're fucked.
See, one of my favorite things about that is the overall arc. There is episodes where it has nothing to do with Ghost Freak, but yet it's still connected. And we've mentioned one of them already, which is the Sumo Slammer one, because Ben turns into Upgrade and hacks his own gaming console, but it's the purple lightning that actually puts Ben and Gwen into the game, and it's the purple lightning that appears in different episodes throughout. And it could be literally just a random. You could call it a filler episode if you wanted to, but it's the purple lightning, and sometimes it's right at the end. You know, like the Mummy episode where they introduce the Mummy.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's just like, hey, it's just another alien-like thing, and then right at the end there's a purple flash. Same with the Ben Wolf episode.
Links it.
You know, it's all connected, and it's like, it's almost like every time you saw the purple flash, it was like, wait, hang on, why is there purple lightning? Okay, now I'm intrigued. Why is there purple lightning? And it was all to do with Ghost Freak.
Well, let's be honest, right? Because so far the episodes we talked about have been pretty standalone, right? We've talked a lot about individual stories in this, but I think one of the things that made Ben 10 so intriguing as a series overall is, like you say, even though all these episodes are pretty independent from each other, they're still always putting stuff in that's building to a larger narrative. And Series 1 might still be the best example of it, because Series 1 is, I think, the most standalone. You know, every episode's kind of its own thing, but every episode's also linked to each other. You know, you kind of always got this thread of Vilgax. You know, you don't even know who Vilgax is yet, but you know he's there, and you know he's trying to get Ben, and Ben is as well. Even though all these episodes are standalone, Ben as a character is growing and evolving, and he's learning with each episode. Obviously, there are the episodes where he just forgets everything he's learned because the writers need conflict. But for the most part, he continues to evolve. And then when you get to your series finale, you know, your secrets, it's like, even though the whole show has kind of been episodic, you still get this grand payoff, because every episode up until now has built to this moment. So it's this huge thing. And again, it's like with Secret of the Omnitrix, which, even though that's a series opener, it's like, well, because you've got this interconnected story between all these episodes, it builds up to this huge moment of what is the Omnitrix, and then we meet the creator and travel across space and have a huge fight with Vilgax, who's now been established to be the baddest motherfucker in the galaxy. So it's, you know, the way that the show builds upon itself is how it created such incredible grand moments that I think very few of its sequel series ever lived up to, honestly. Even stuff like Alien Force, which did have a very interconnected story, it didn't quite reach the highs of Classic, even though Classic was arguably as, if not more, episodic than some of the later seasons.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at the time as well, it was very unique in the sense of there were cartoons that did it, but there wasn't many cartoons that did it, you know, especially aimed at kids.
Yeah.
You know, like, there wasn't cartoons that had, you know, even just a simple episode of something. But like I said, you know, the Super Saiyan episode, you saw the purple lightning, so that's linked. You know, they're it's showing you without pointing at it, going, "Hey, we're connecting it." They didn't need to do that. It's like, "Hey, have a flash bulb lightning. This is connected. You'll see later," sort of thing. Not many at the time cartoons were really doing it, at that time, and later cartoons did start doing it more and things. So I think they did.
Well,
Like,
Ben
a really
10
good job.
kind of came about, I think, in my opinion, at what would be the renaissance of like action cartoons, because
Yeah,
obviously you had your X-Men's in the 90s and your Spider-Mans, and you had shows like this. Batman 2003 was very similar to this, but Ben 10 is kind of, in my opinion, what kickstarted the renaissance, because that, in my opinion, even though other shows had done it, that was the show that kind of set the standard on how to do a show like this. Because again, yeah, because when you get to that, and then it's like we have all the sequel series, and you have stuff like Generator Rex, and you had a lot of shows that I think would kind of look at Ben 10 and be like, that's kind of the gold standard. Because let's be honest, Ben 10 is like arguably like one of the best cartoons ever made. So it's so good. I think that's type of storytelling I've always stood by as my favorite type, where it's episodic with a interconnected story. And I think that's the best way, because it's like, I was watching this stuff when I was 3-4 years old. Was I interested in the interconnected stories at that age? Honestly, not really. I just put on an episode and have a good time with that episode. But then as I get older, it's the interconnected parts. That's the part that's keeping me interested, because then I'm now putting all the pieces together, and I'm figuring out how the story interconnects, and then it creates these big grand moments. And I think that's what made the show so timeless for a lot of people. That's why so many adults are still so into it, because like, it is a kids show, but it's a kids show that respects its audience enough to treat, to the point where you can watch it as an adult and get as much enjoyment from it, because it's not talking down to you. It's not sitting there and being like, it's not just bright colors and noise for 5 minutes. Like, it's got a story, it's got a point it's trying to get to.
Yeah.
But it wants to have fun.
So before we wrap this up, I have 2 more questions for you. The first one is your all-time favorite classic villain, and also your worst time classic villain, and that is one question.
Ooh. All-time favorite classic villain. Oh, that's hard. That's a hard one. It's hard as well, because all the main villains are so good. Your Ghost Freaks and your Vilgax and Dr. Animo, so fantastic. And I kind of want to throw in like a weird obscure one. Oh my god! Like when you're on the spot and you just can't think.
Yep.
I'm so on the spot.
I love torturing you, bro. It's fun,
bro. You every time. I'm definitely not googling some classic villains to re-jog my memory. Okay, you know what? Is a villain that for some reason I remember really liking. He's probably not even that good. I can't even remember his name, but the hypnotism guy.
Oh, yes, of course. I know what you're on about.
It's the Wildvine episode where they're in like a shopping mall. For some reason, I really liked that episode when I first watched it, and I just thought he was a really creepy villain. And that episode is the reason why I like Wildvine so much. Like, he just stuck in my memory. So yeah, I really do like him. He again, I can't even tell you his name. Subliminal, something like that.
Yeah. No, I like Subliminal. It was a bit weird. He was part of the -10. Personally.
Yeah, I didn't. Honestly, I love him in his first appearance. I didn't much care for him past that. I didn't really care much for the whole -10.
I feel like he makes a good like one-off villain though.
Yeah, he was a great one-off. In fact, in terms of worst villain, the Forever King, because I love his design.
Exactly the same. Mine's exactly the same.
I love his design, and I love the idea of him, and I love the idea of the Forever Knights. But I feel like Classic never really quite got the Forever Knights right. Like, they did. You had the Grey Matter episode, which is pretty good, where he gets captured because he's stuck as Grey Matter for some reason. Like, I love that episode, and I liked the kind of mystery of the Forever Knights. But then when you you get to the meat and bones of it, and you got the Forever King, and it's just kind of this isn't that good. I feel like they didn't find their footing with the Forever Knights until Alien Force.
Yeah, I agree.
Because classic Forever Knights, I just think are a bit weak.
Yeah, so mine's my weakest is also Forever King. To tell the truth, my favorite. I would say Dr. Animo, but we have spoken a bit about Dr. Animo. So
that's it. I was trying to avoid like an obvious one.
So, I'll go with Charmcaster.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I always remember the episode where you're she swaps bodies. With Gwen.
I bit of a hot take, but I like Charmcaster going through the all the different series. I quite like Charmcaster's like going into madness, kind of losing the plot a little bit and things.
She's a character I really like in Classic and didn't much care for past Classic. I've never really cared much for any of the adaptations since. I love the original one. Is it just me though? Did she get like drastically younger in all of her future appearances? She does look
a lot backwards. Younger. Yeah.
You know what? Because I just seen a picture of it, I'm like, can't believe I never brought him up. But in terms of, I'm not going to say he's like a one-off villain, but more like a interesting, reoccurring antagonist. 6'6".
6'6" is very cool.
He's so mysterious.
It annoyed the fuck out of me. They brought in 7788. That annoyed the crap out of me.
Right.
They should have just left it at 6'6".
When you got to Alien Force, and they're like, "Oh, this is 7'7". He's the same guy, but he's different. Why isn't he just 6'6"? Why is he gonna be different? And then they just kind of shoehorned in a third one because it's like, well, shit, we need to make our own one now. What was wrong with 6'6"?
Yeah. Okay, so my last question for you, and don't worry, you can pick three. Your top 3 episodes in Ben 10.
Actually, I immediately know what my favorite one is, and that's the Series 2 finale. Which normally I remember the episode name of, but it's escaping me now. Vengeance? Back with a Vengeance, that's it. Back with a Vengeance. The Series 2 finale, it's Ben gets Master Control. Kevin 11 teams up with Vilgax, and they're trapped in the Nova. That, like I say, that's the first episode I remember, and specifically the first scene I think I ever saw of Ben 10 is the bit where they're in the Null Void, and Kevin's got that device and he's ripping the Omnitrix off his arm.
It's gory.
It's so intense.
It's the most PG body horror can get, because the skin is still attached to it. You see the skin being pulled in different directions and stuff.
I do want to add, because I didn't talk about this, but I was actually talking about this prior to this podcast with another friend, that I find interesting, is that Ben 10, I feel like nobody would ever really consider it this. But in my opinion, the classic Ben 10 series is actually more horror than it is sci-fi. Like, it's a very creepy series. It's got a very dark, muted color palette. It's got a lot of kind of disturbing ideas and a lot of... It's very horror coded. You know, they have a lot of horror monsters. They got a lot of horror bad guys. They do a lot of horror stories. And obviously it's horror sci-fi, but it's the only Ben 10 thing that I would ever class as horror, because Alien Force goes for more pulp sci-fi, and then Omniverse is more fantasy. Whereas classic Ben 10 is straight up horror, and I love it because I'm a huge horror guy, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm so into horror, because Ben 10's like a gateway drug. And Secrets as well is a great one for that. We're Back with a Vengeance. Favorite episode. Another favorite episode, which I'm going to actually say is my second favorite, is Series 3, Episode 1. So I guess they're very close to each other, which is the Ben 10,000 episode. Because seeing the older Ben in that episode, I know they did Ben 10,000 in a sequel episode, and they brought him back in every subsequent series. They never beat the first one for me, because it was a really interesting idea of having Ben being all consumed by the hero lifestyle. He has no life, he has no family, but at the same time, he's the top of his game. And even just subtle stuff like he never turns into his human form. and the way he quick switches between all the aliens, see him at such a high level of mastery of his abilities was so cool. And then you see him in his human form, and he's got the sickest design with the black shirt with the white stripe and the big Omnitrix gauntlet. It was so cool and interesting.
When it comes to Ben 10,000 as well, I think they did a really good job of really making it dominant of how different life is. Aliens are just living on Earth. Ben's got his own tower-looking building. All of his aliens look older now too. Like the Accelerate design. My god, that's so good.
The universe,
in
ways that you don't expect.
Vilgax and Animo are back, but they're also different. And as it just even Gwen, she's now mastered magic. She's got the charm Bazel's down her arm, and
she's fucking Sorcerer Supreme.
Exactly.
But even you look past all that, and the episode just has a really good story of like being in touch with family, and like it revolves around Max's birthday, and it's like you take away all the lore and shit, and it's a really just sweet episode.
But it also brings it back to, Ben getting the Omnitrix at 10 years old is important, because the reason why Gwen 10,000, if you will, brought Gwen and Ben to the future is to remind Ben of who he is.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Like it's almost like he lost himself in being a hero. So it's not even like young Ben's story at that point. Like even though it's from young Ben's perspective, the story arc of that episode is old Ben. Really, obviously, young Ben has a story arc, and they needs to be selfless and think about other people. But then he sees old Ben, who really is 100% selfless because he doesn't care about himself. So you got the same character at two extremes in the opposite direction, and that's honestly one of the most interesting and unique ways I think you could do a time travel story in a show like this. So that's definitely second favorite episode, and then third favorite episode, fuck it, Kevin 11, the first Kevin episode. It's classic, it's iconic, it's incredible. I'd watch it all day, every day. It's an amazing episode. We've spoken about Kevin extensively. I don't think I need to say anything more.
So your first two picks, honestly, in my top three as well. I absolutely adore the Ben 10,000 episode. I think it does the whole time travel thing really well. The whole idea of meeting your future self. Marvel and DC have done it. DC done it with Superman and the Justice League. They've done it with the Hulk in Marvel. But a lot of times they either turn evil or they go completely out of themselves. Where I think Ben sticks to himself as being a hero, but he just loses that innocence. That's the whole point of Ben 10,000.
Old Ben isn't a bad guy. Like, he's a bit of a dick. But it's like he's not bad because he's completely selfless at the same time.
The whole point of that episode is, Ben's childish nature and Ben's, connection to family and Ben's immaturity is what makes Ben Ben. And Ben 10,000 lost all three of those things. It's just a hero now. And that's what Ben 10,000 had to remember.
It's interesting as well because that lesson that old Ben learns is also what separates Ben 10 from other superheroes, because how many other characters are like Ben 10?
Yeah, that's right.
In a sense, like you don't need to teach Superman to be in touch with his childhood self or any of that.
That's very true.
You can't do that storyline with like any other superhero.
And then your first pick is definitely in my top three. I love the scene where he's running through the null void, changing aliens, trying to get.
He's just like the most badass
so
guy
peak.
ever.
That is so peak for and Gwen also gets a really good moment too, where she has to go into the null void by herself without her grandpa, without Ben's Omnitrix or anything. It's just her.
Let's also not forget that Ben gives up the Omnitrix to save Gwen, which I think is such a powerful moment, scene as well. Especially considering it's at this time, they're still not exactly buddy. They bicker and fight every episode, but then it's when shit gets real, take the watch. Doesn't even think about it, And I think that is so much more real because it's almost like the things he doesn't say is kind of the things that matter. In a sense. And then I think it's after that is when really their relationship starts to build more.
Yeah, and then for my third one, I'm gonna have to throw in the Tick. Just the idea of a new alien, bringing
It's
in
a good one.
Cannonball, and this is one of my favorite things as well. It's been now stated by the creators of Ben 10 that Cannonbolt's race do not bounce around and just bash into things. They roll. Absolutely, but they roll in a nice, peaceful manner to make sure they don't bump into anyone. The whole thing of Ben rolling at fast speeds and using himself as a cannonball is all Ben, and that just shows how fucking good he is at weaponizing his aliens when he needs to.
I like that idea that they're peaceful. They're basically just pandas, just roll around.
they're literally just they don't bash it. They don't weaponize themselves at all. That's all Ben. And the idea that there's a new alien now, and it's a case of. The Tick's a really weird, concept as well. Yes, okay, Ben does fight these other dudes, but they're not like Vilgax, where, they could, by themselves, blow up a planet. They're not Kevin, who has his powers, or anything like that. They're just dudes. But the Tick itself is just a threat in itself. It doesn't...
to me, the Tick is very much... It's more like... It's not like Doctor Doom, it's more like Galactus. It's kind of more like... It's not a bad guy, per se. It's kind of... It's more like...
It's survival. It's survival,
It's survival. It's like a hurricane. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can... But... It's Ben 10, so you could fight the hurricane. But it's more like... It's nature.
Yeah. Well, thank you, bro, for coming on and talking about Ben 10 with me. This has been a little while in planning and stuff,
yes.
So I appreciate you coming on. It's been an absolute blast. I've kind of been on a Ben 10 high the last couple of months, so having the ability to just vent Ben 10 to someone has been great.
No, I honestly, I love it. I love talking Ben 10. It is genuinely like my favorite show. I don't do as much Ben 10 stuff as I used to, but it used to be 5 years ago from now, Ben 10 was like my whole thing, and while I'm not raving about it every day, it's still one of my favorite things. And it's, like I say, my earliest memory that I can recall is watching Ben 10. So when I say I'm a lifelong fan, I don't remember a life before Ben 10,
So obviously you shall return.
I shall return. We're going to come back for my favorite series next time, which I'm very excited about because I get to gush about my favorite, and then I get to get really angry about season 3.
So I look forward to Alien Force. I definitely have some opinions on Alien Force, which are good and also slightly bad, and then also some hot takes.
We're gonna have more. I think. It's this one's been a bit of a breeze because, let's be honest, we very much agree on this show. Yeah. We love this show. We haven't even spoke really that much about criticisms we've had with this show. Obviously there are episodes I don't like, and there's certain aspects of it I don't like, but we've remained very positive this time. But I feel like that's basically gone next time. Where
it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a bit more. It's gonna be a bit more debating, I think, in a good way. I think we've got more issues with the sequels than we do with classics, so it's gonna create some conflict between us that I'm very excited to discuss.
Yeah, same. So yeah, again, thank you very much. Of course, everyone check out Cosmic Rust animation on YouTube. You can see some of Robyn's artwork in 3D.
Yeah, you should
work
see my
as
Ben
well.
10 aliens.
And yeah, he's completely very well done. Some 3D models of Ben 10 aliens. It's a really good video. If you're into Power Rangers, horror stuff, and just really unique ideas too, you can definitely check out the channel.
Or just animated series in general. I'm currently working on an indie animated series that I'd actually say is partly inspired by Ben 10. We're following a similar kind of story structure, and it's got the kind of horror elements similar to Ben 10. So I think if you like Ben 10, you might like my series.
Yeah, cool. And with that, guys, thank you very much for obviously listening. If you're listening on podcast platforms, please rate us and all that jazz. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. We're getting closer to 100 subscribers, so that would be absolutely brilliant. And of course, don't forget to let us know your favorite Ben 10 alien, your favorite Ben 10 episode.
And if it's not Wild Mutt, you're wrong.
And of course, like, how did you get into Ben 10 and, all that jazz? And throw in a villain or two. We're happy to kind of see, where people kind of like lie in their favorites. I'm very curious. With that being said, I love you all. War of Passion, everybody. And I shall see you guys in the next one.
Bye-bye.